understand, probably not at this time due to COVID, but it is one that is available for the rest of our community to visit and learn more about our water systems and everything. So I do appreciate that opportunity with Mr. Castro to have visited and gotten to see a little bit of this work and seeing how our city is serviced through this. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to say this is something that we need to do. I'm very fortunate that I was given a tour of the desalter facility sometime a few years back. It is tremendous to see how this thing works, and it's also tremendous to see what it pulls out of the water. And if they don't have the chemicals in place, we end up hurting our filter system and potentially causing us a lot of money to replace these filters. It is amazing if the public gets a chance to go see that on a tour basis of some time, to see just what exactly the quality and the type of work that is being done to provide the residents of Oxnard with a high quality product called drinking water, potable water. Are there any other questions by the committee?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mr. Omar, is this the 3rd Street facility?
Yeah, this is on Hayes Avenue at the main water campus.
Hayes and 3rd, yes, okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair and the rest of the committee, I appreciate you advertising the tour, but just public service announcement. Mr. Castro will make a public service announcement once the pandemic is over and we restart the tours. I don't want to over-encourage people to try to do the tour anytime soon.
And that is on me. Yes, after when everything's hunky-dory with the health issues, yes, because it's a very informative. I mean, this is the kind of a thing they should teach. They should take school kids and show them how this works, but it's got to be when it's safe. And we need to make sure that the people that work in that water campus are continually kept safe, because it's important. When you turn on your tap, you expect to have high quality water. And we do in the city. Thank you to the men and women who work there.
Council Chair, if I can say, we are
Go ahead,
working,
Mr. Castro.
we are working on a virtual tour that, well, hopefully we can have that online, hopefully in the next 6 months,
That's excellent.
so that people can go online and see our water system.
And if I can recommend, Mr. Castro, some pictures showing exactly what this chemicals do to break down the solids and the salts that basically, when I was given the tour, some of them were plug solid. And I was very stunned that there was that much stuff coming out that we were capturing it to improve the quality of water. If there are no more questions, do we have a recommendation from the committee?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Roll call, please, Madam Chair. Madam Clerk.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the men and women at the Water Department. Item number 3, Public Works Department. Subject, purchase of heavy equipment for wastewater division. Recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute purchase orders with: number 1, Nixon Egley in the amount of $232,001.13 for a new crane truck. Number 2, Velocity Truck Centers in the amount of $219,914.81 for a new roll-off truck. Number 3, Quinn Company in the amount of $266,247.81 for a new excavator. Number 4, Quinn Company in the amount of $146,894.52 for a new backhoe. And number 5, Quinn Company in the amount of $35,910.92 for a new forklift. Again, this was available. The presentation was available on the city's website. Because of Measure M, it had to be pre-recorded and there will be no presentation. Do we have any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, madam.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you. So I was looking specifically, I mean, these are large pieces of equipment and just wondering if, to clarify, if they are used specifically in one location or if they're moved around. We do have the vehicles to transport them if that is needed. and just, how, if they do need to be moved, how is that done considering the size?
Yes, I'm Jeff Miller. I'm the city's wastewater infrastructure manager. And to answer your question is, yes, most of those vehicles will be utilized here within the wastewater treatment plant, as well as our headworks facility, which is right across the railroad tracks. Regarding the excavator, currently we don't have any way to transport, but we have two different ways that possibly we could do it. One is ask one of our, the water division or one of the other streets departments who has a trailer with the capability of doing that. The other thing is we're going to budget for a trailer specifically designed to move the excavator to various locations if need be.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do you have any questions, Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I was going to ask Jeff, most of this equipment is new equipment and some replacement equipment. But I think the important thing that you share here, that this ensures safety of the employees and of the equipment, which is really, really important for the wastewater department or division. So I just want to share that that's really important to share with the public. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, but I'll tell you what, I'll wait for the public speaker. We do have one public speaker on this matter.
Yes, we do, Chair. Mr. Blatel? Hi.
Hello.
Yes, thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Committee Chair and members. An Oxnard wastewater capital improvement plan was created way back when the wastewater rates were being considered for increases. This plan covered the 5-year period from FY 2017-18 to FY 2021-22. On page 54 of this prior plan, it lists a crane truck for $34,000. And on page 58 of this same plan, crane truck is again listed for $102,000, which happens to be 3 times the $34,000. Thus, this leads one to believe the SIP included plans for the purchase of 4 crane trucks with a unit price of $34,000. Now we see the plan to purchase a new crane truck for a little over $232,000, assuming the Measure E tax hike is applicable. The agenda report says a new crane truck, indicating singular. But if again 4 crane trucks are being purchased via this proposal, the unit price would be over $58,000 each. The cost increase would be about 71%, of which is much more than inflation. And $34,000 seems too little even for the FY 2017-18. Yet, if only one is being purchased now for $232,000, this seems like way too much. So what's going on? Thank you very much.
This is the city manager. That's a very valid question. I'd like to hear an answer.
So this particular crane truck is going to be specifically used here at the wastewater treatment plant to remove large pieces of equipment and other types of wastewater associated, pumps and valves and that kind of thing. So it's specific to this, and it's not tied to the CIP.
I just want to flesh this out a little bit. So Mr. Blatel refers to the 5-year plan that apparently is still, if his reading of it is accurate, is active. So was that for a different kind of a crane truck with a different purpose and use, or what's happening with those numbers?
Yes.
It is wildly different. Can you explain that, please?
Yes, this particular crane truck is much larger than the ones that are being spec'd out in the CIP. So it has larger capacity, the ability to lift heavier weight. It has more range. It also has more reach. So it's more specific to hard to get areas and heavier pieces of equipment within the treatment plant.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I need to just make sure we all understand this. Was this size of a crane truck anticipated in that 5-year plan or not?
No, it was not. I'd also like to add too that when we purchase this particular crane, it's also going to minimize or completely do away with the need to rent larger crane trucks to do larger jobs. So it's making us more efficient, giving us the ability to do things in-house.
And Mr. Chair, may I continue?
Please do.
Just very quickly. So the plan itself, does this mean we've amended the plan? And was it a plan that was part of the rate study or just an internal plan? I just want to make sure we're taking the right steps here. I don't doubt the need for the bigger crane truck.
Yeah. This was an internal plan.
So the plan Mr. Platel's referring to that he's apparently read is not associated to the rate study, or it is?
It is not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. I have a few questions. Some of me, a few questions. It's been mentioned that we may have in the future look for a piece of equipment so that we can transport this equipment back and forth. And I will just use a simple example. Oftentimes in construction, farming, utilities, there will be one piece of equipment that is used once or twice, or 3 times or 4 times, but let's say less than one day a month. And the investment in that piece of equipment versus the rental of a professional, shall we say a transfer company to come in and pick up something and move it somewhere else. Granted, there are times when transfer companies are not there at the drop of a hat, but the amount of money that can be saved by going out and hiring it's commonly called a low bed to pick up something, I think is something we need to look forward to in this going future. We're still a frugal city trying to do right things. The second thing that goes along with that, the environment that this would be in, it's right next to the ocean, and the salt water and the environment is rough on equipment. The crane, I have no knowledge to challenge the use or the need of a large crane, but if we're going to be using, we're going to have a piece of very expensive, I needed equipment, I would like to know 2 questions. The people that use that will be trained to use that, and people that are not trained will not be allowed to use that. And if this is transferred from one department to another, how do we make sure that that next department has somebody trained to operate that piece of equipment?
So to answer your first question, absolutely. Anybody that's going to be operating that crane will go through various training sessions and multiple classes in order to operate that piece of equipment effectively and safely. And somebody that does not have the experience absolutely will not be allowed to operate that piece of equipment. That's something that we actually feel very strongly about. Our intent would be to try to get as many people trained as possible, but there will be some folks that initially will be trained in an effort to make sure they can operate that safely. Regarding the lowboy trailer that you mentioned, yes, it could be rented. However, we also have other pieces of equipment that we could use to transport that lowboy. For example, the backhoe that we're also asking for, we could utilize that trailer to move the backhoe to various locations. We have skip loader that we might be able to transport to different locations. So I don't believe that it's going to be once a month or so. I think it'll be very well utilized actually here. Additionally, we could also, if we pull a large piece of equipment out of one of our process areas, for example, the headworks, we could actually place that piece of equipment on that trailer and transport it to the main treatment plant where we can do the major repairs, as opposed to having to do them, say, in a parking lot at the headworks facility. We can actually bring those pieces of equipment into our shop where we have the adequate tools to make those necessary repairs.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, the bottom line though is the answer is no, you and the mayor cannot operate that truck.
With proper training, they might be able to.
I wanted to do that.
No.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
Mr. Chair, I just want to commend Jeff because noticing that he's taken procuring this equipment to the Sourcewell competitive cooperative agreement, taking advantage of the nationwide competitive bidding. That is really important because working with those individuals, we save a lot of money as opposed to going on a solo basis. So I commend you for that because that's going to save us a lot of money.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments by committee members?
Mhm.
Okay. This apparently is needed and we need to move forward. Do we have a recommendation
So move.
from the council committee, from the committee?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries
Mhm.
3-0.
I would like to thank the member of the public that brought his concerns up to us, and it's appreciated. The next item on the agenda is Public Works Department, agreement for consulting services for wastewater and recycled water treatment process support. Recommendation, that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute agreements for the following wastewater and recycled water treatment process support consulting services. There are 7 items on this particular item. Number 1, agreement number A-8283 with Dudek in the amount not to exceed $100,000 for a 3-year term ending February 16th, 2024. Number 2, agreement A-8284 with MV Engineering LLC in the amount not to exceed $125,000 for a 3-year term ending February 16th, 2024. Number 3, agreement number A-8285 with GHD Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $100,000 for the 3-year term ending February 16th, 2024. Number 4, agreement number A-8286 with KEH Group Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $100,000 for a 3-year term ending February 16th, 2024. Number 5, agreement A-8287 with Kennedy Jenks Consultants Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $175,000 for a 3-year term ending February 16th, 2024. Number 6, agreement number 8288 with Separation Processes Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $125,000 for a 3-year term ending February 16, 2024. And number 7, agreement number 8289 with Carollo Engineering in the amount not to exceed $175,000 for a 3-year term ending February 16, 2024. And again, ladies and gentlemen of the public, there was a presentation, but because of the Measure M, the voters approved. It was available prior to the meeting and it will not be presented now. Does committee members have any comments on this item or questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
Is this Jeff also? No, it's not. Okay.
This will be me, Jan Hauser.
The question I have is most of these items are basically mandated items that are required by the wastewater treatment plan. Is that correct? That we, for example, work with Dudek and MB Engineering and Kennedy Jenks and consultants. Normally, those are 3-year, 1-year contracts.
Mr. Hauser, can you introduce yourself and also state your position in the organization before you answer? Thank you.
Of course. My name is Jan Hauser. I'm the wastewater division manager. So these contracts are for 3 years and they're for a variety of potential projects that come up occasionally. Some are regulatory and permitting. Some are process related for either increasing the efficiency of our processes or troubleshooting and investigating any problems we may have with the processes, either at the wastewater plant or the advanced water treatment facility. So it's really broken down into three specific categories where qualifications, experience, and expertise is really required that we don't have internally. This is not for design and construction. So these are relatively small contracts that we will utilize based on things that we're either aware of now or that we know will come up in the future.
So most of those are operational items that,
Yes, absolutely. It's really focused on operations.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions, Councilmember Lopez?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Hauser, thank you for the presentation. One of the common, I think, calls and complaints that we hear about the treatment plant is related to odor, specifically from the neighbors in our neighboring city of Port Hueneme, but also residents in the Southwinds neighborhood in that area. So if you wouldn't mind sharing or explaining a little bit about what the services regarding odor control would look like, and if this is part of the on-call services that can be provided, how does this work? If you can explain a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yes. Odor control was one of the specific qualifications we look for in these consultants. I believe two of the firms have pretty good odor control experience and qualifications and personnel. We will utilize them when we have an issue that we need some outside help with. Now we are continuing. Just so everybody knows, we have made great progress on our odor control. Our calls and complaints are down considerably. We're down to just 1 or 2 a month. My goal is to have 0. So we are doing a number of things to continue to work on our odor control. But yes, some of these firms specifically were chosen for their odor control expertise.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hauser. Go ahead, Mayor.
Yep. Mr. Hauser, so are you working with APCD on the odor control, working with the city of Hueneme and APCD from the county?
Yes, we're working very closely with APCD. Every time we have a project or a new approach to odor control, we meet with APCD and we present it to them and get their feedback. And so we're in close contact with them. We talk to them on a regular basis about their calls or complaints about odors because they get calls independent from us.
That's right.
And their calls are tracking pretty close to ours. And they're different people, but when they get a call, they call us and ask us, is anything unusual going on or anything like that. So yes, we're working very closely with them, and these consultants will help us out with permitting. There will be some new permitting issues related to odor control and air in general with some of our capital improvements coming up in the near future.
I'm happy that you're doing that because I was a chairman of the board for APCD last year and also still a member of APCD. And one of the concerns that they had was the odor control. And I'm glad the city of Oxnard is working with APCD and also the city of Hueneme because I know that affects, the council members, district, and all of us for that matter. But thank you for working with them.
Sure, and I did a presentation, if you recall, a year or so ago to the committee.
I remember. Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I can sympathize with Councilmember Lopez, being that her district covers this area and there are residents in her district that could smell the odor. My involvement with the city of Oxnard began with the strong odors that came out of the Calwood and the Montalvo Municipal Improvement District that, as the mayor will recall, he was on the council at that time and sat on the VRST board. The odors and the impact they have on people's quality of life is a big deal. And to hear the progress that we're making is great because people do like to sleep with a window open. And when things are not working right, there's nothing worse than having aggravated neighbors and the concerns that come up. So well done, job well done. I know it's taken a long time to get there. It boils down to, there was years of neglect to plant for delayed needs of work, and they came home to roost, and we're doing a tremendous job to get it back. But these consultants, and to get back to the other point, the mandated, the city of Oxnard could have people in positions of expertise in-house to do some of these jobs, but feasibly, but economically, it would not be wise to have people in-house because we wouldn't have consistent volume of work to keep them. And it's better for us to go out with a consultant. If I'm wrong, please correct me, Mr. Hauser.
No, that's correct. A lot of the work we need is very, I'll say rare expertise and experience, and to have that in-house would be very unusual.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further questions by the committee? And I don't hear of a public comment. So do we have a recommendation from the committee if no questions?
I'll move the recommended action of approval.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, the next item is number 5, again, Public Works Department. The subject, procurement of vehicles and trailers for the Environmental Resource Division. Recommendation that the Public Works and Transportation Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize. There are 2 parts to this, but they are broken down into several components. Number 1, the mayor to execute a purchase order in the total amount of $10,189,921.49 for the purchase of new vehicles and accessories. And this is all under item 1. A, purchase order with Velocity Truck Centers for the amount not to exceed $8,360,298.80 for the purchase of 10 new residential compressed natural gas (CNG) vehicles with accessories for a cost of $3,343,980.80. 9 new commercial compressed natural gas (CNG) vehicles with accessories for a cost of $3,016,424.97. 5 new industrial compressed natural gas (CNG) vehicles with accessories for a cost of $1,375,855.65. Number I4, 2 new rear loaders compressed natural gas (CNG) vehicles with accessories for a cost of $624,037.38. And the second item, B, purchase order with Kenworth Truck Company Division of PACCAR Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $906,092.30 for the purchase of 7 new semi-tractor transfer vehicles and accessories. And C, purchase order with the trailer company for an amount not to exceed $923,530.39 for the purchase of 10 new transfer trailers with accessories. And number 2, the city manager to approve a budget appropriation in the amount of $10,189,092 to recognize proceeds from a lease purchase to finance the acquisition of refuse collection vehicles and transfer trailers from the Environmental Resources Division Project 216804. Ladies and gentlemen, there was a PowerPoint presentation made by the staff, but because of Measure M and I believe the wrong thinking of the voters, the public will not see it at this meeting. You need to see it prior to the meeting. So there will be no presentation, only questions. Do we have any questions on this item from the committee or public comments? And I see no public comments.
Yeah, Mr.
Mayor,
Chair.
go ahead. Go
Yes.
ahead, Mayor.
I'm sure that probably Todd is listening to this. The question I have is on the 9 new commercial trucks. Are those front-end loader trucks? Number 1, and also the 5 the roll-off trucks, and then of course in the rear loader are they residential trucks? Or are they front and loaded trucks, roll-offs, and residential trucks?
Yes, good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Todd Vasquez, Housing Environmental Resources Division Manager. Mayor, the commercial vehicles are indeed front loaders, referred to interchangeably. The side loader vehicles are residential vehicles, also referred to interchangeably. And roll-off vehicles are also referred to as industrial or box haulers interchangeably.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. Todd, and what is the what's the current life of this refuse trucks?
They're listed in the staff report, divided out by class, residential, commercial, industrial. We've listed the trailers and we've listed these semi tractors. So there's 5 answers to that question. I'll start in the staff report with the residential. We're looking at an average lifespan of those vehicles of is over 11 years. Commercial vehicles, currently the average lifespan of those vehicles are over 12 years each. The industrial or roll-off vehicles, the average life for those vehicles are over 13 years. The rear loader vehicle that we currently have just one, that is a little over 10 years old. The semi tractors, the average age of that fleet is over 21 years. And I'll also say we have 2 or 3 vehicles with over 1 million miles on them. And then the last portion, the semi tractors, the age of that fleet is averaging over 21 years as well.
And, Mr. Chair, you know, those lifespans are a lot better than they used to be. Because I remember at one time their residential trucks and front-end loader trucks are lifespan were about 6 to 7 years. But the new trucks have really now they've expanded the life of those trucks considerably. Is that correct, Todd?
Mr. Housley?
I'm sorry, I had a break in the signal. Could you please repeat the question, Mayor?
Yes, so the question I have is, I think that they have improved the life of those refuse trucks tremendously because I remember when they were about 5 to 7 years and we were losing frames and engines and so forth in the past, but I'm sure that they've improved the quality of those refuse trucks tremendously to last that long, or else you have some really good maintenance on those trucks.
Mayor, it's a combination of both the partnership between environmental resources and the fleet division. We do try to keep them to the extent that the graph doesn't cross more on the side of cost for maintenance versus downtime versus what the vehicle value is. So we do try to stay where those curves meet on the graph line.
Excellent, excellent. One last question, Mr. Chair. We going from diesel to CNG?
Yes, the goal is to convert the entire fleet to CNG or some form of alternative fuel. We have that technology available in the residential, commercial, roll-off and rear loader vehicles. The semi-tractor are still diesel powered, but technology is getting close to where we can possibly look at electric for those vehicles.
And probably ultimately it's probably going to be electrical, but that's going to be some time, sure.
Yes, we keep an eye on the industry because electric vehicles look to be very beneficial as far as reduced fuel cost, maintenance, and staying on the road longer with less maintenance.
And the weight. Yep.
Not to mention
Weight and also no fuel emissions at the point of the vehicle.
Exactly right. Mr. City Manager, you want to share some?
it's the same point Mr. Housley brought up. It's much better on pollution as well.
The pollution, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee Member Lopez, do you have any?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Housley. It was very detailed presentation, and one of the points that stood out to me in terms of the amount of waste that is picked up or collected. And one of the issues that we've definitely seen throughout the city, in particular, the neighborhoods with alleyways, is the dumping that happens. And so I just wanted to ask if the information or the data that you shared about the amount or the tonnage of waste that is collected, if that is factored as part of the waste, if there's a different figure that is gathered independently. And in addition to that, sorry for the long question, is this what the rear loader vehicles will assist in addressing the illegal dumping throughout the city? Yeah.
Yes, the rear loader vehicles are specifically for the 311 neighborhood programs and bulky item pickups. Your first question, could you please repeat that, because you're breaking up as well a little bit?
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to ask if there's a different figure of the amount of waste that is collected in these larger items, or is that included in the number that was provided for the residential, multifamily, and commercial amount of waste that is collected?
So the number reported in the staff report is the total amount of those categories. Everything that comes into the MRF at Del Norte is going to be generally classified in one of those three categories. To answer your question, we keep the total tally, and we also have the individual tally all the way down to each individual work order or an individual neighborhood cleanup program. So we also do have that data available.
Okay, perfect. And so based on that information that was gathered, is that part of the reason why we are looking to acquiring a second additional rear loader to address the need that is happening throughout the city? And is that part of just the amount that has been gathered as through the 311 app and residential requests?
It is a combination of all those factors. We really should have two trucks now. That way, when one is down for maintenance, we have a backup. But at the same time, the 311 Oxnard 311 application has been very successful, and we do see growth in that every year. So we want to plan for that additional tonnage and being able to keep up on those work orders as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's very helpful, and glad to hear that the 311 app is being utilized by our residents. Certainly very user-friendly and a really good way to maintain that communication with our staff. So thank you for the work.
You're welcome.
Mr. Housley, in each of the PowerPoints that we had, we show the recommended life cycle of all the classes of vehicles is 7 years. How is that life cycle, recommended 7-year life cycle, how is that determined? Is that something the city does, or industry does, or manufacturers do? How does that come about?
It's a combination of those factors, most heavily weighted on our use internally. So we have a range of vehicles here that we're requesting permission to purchase. Residential vehicles, as the mayor said earlier, those still, even with the new technology, are strongly around the 7-year term. Other vehicles possibly could go longer, but we are looking at the value, the remaining debt on a vehicle, the maintenance cost of the vehicle, and the cost of the downtime. And again, as I explained earlier, when you graph all of those, when you get a situation where the truck is on the road less than it is, in maintenance less than it is on the road, or you're paying more for a year for that vehicle than a replacement would cost in maintenance, then that's the point of the graph you want to start recommending purchasing new vehicles. The number that we came up with of 7 years is conservative in some factors. It's based on past history of mostly diesel equipment, but we are getting experience in the last 6 years with CNG. I'm also considering new Cal Recycle mandates for mandated recycling for commercial recycling, food waste recycling, and the factor that we deal with solid waste, which is one of the hardest materials on truck vehicles. So I hope that answers your question as to how we come to the number of average lifespan.
And I appreciate that because there's been a tremendous amount of success in keeping these things longer, much longer than the recommended life. The city's been getting its money's worth out of this equipment. With respect to, as we cycle through our solid waste department and we're increasing more and more CNG equipment, how many more cycles do you think it will take before we totally convert our fleet? How many diesel vehicles will still be left that need to be cycled out once they reach their time of usefulness expiring?
We're looking after this procurement, which we're requesting of the committee and council now, we're looking at a remainder of about 15 to 20% diesel vehicles. And in our next round of recommendations for purchases over probably next fiscal year, we will have probably addressed all of the diesel conversions to CNG in the collection fleet. But as I said earlier, the semi-transfer fleet will remain diesel until we have a viable alternative technology to replace them.
Thank you very much. The only other question I have, I'll direct for the city manager. On item 2 of this particular aspect, it states the city manager to approve a budget appropriation in the amount of $10,189,000 to recognize proceeds from a lease purchase to finance the acquisition of the refuse collection vehicles and transfer trailers for the Environmental Resource Division. Can you explain a little bit in depth what that means, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, very quickly. We don't want to pay all this, all cash, all upfront.
right.
So our recommendation from us in management and especially our CFO is, of course, to go with the leasing option. So in the staff report, at the end of it, that recommendation in the paragraph is continued with, and I'm going to go ahead and read it here again. A budget appropriation in the amount of the $10 million in the Environmental Resources Fund in project number 216804 will recognize proceeds from the eventual lease purchase to finance the acquisition of the vehicles and trailers. Annual payments for the vehicles and trailers under the lease purchase will be included in future annual budget requests. In other words, we will budget this out year over year to pay the lease. However, after completing the RFP process for a lease purchase financing, the staff will then have to return to this committee and ultimately to the city council to recommend approval, to get the approval of the master lease agreement for equipment with the payment terms and interest rate for the lease purchase for the vehicles and trailers. And it says here, staff expects the financing to be in place before the city needs to pay for the equipment, which takes months to manufacture and prepare for delivery. In that perspective, similar to the big fire trucks.
And,
Thank you very much.
and Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mayor.
can I add, I'm sure that Todd can probably attest to that, but the industry, I don't think anybody ever buys trucks anymore. They lease them because just to buy those trucks doesn't make any sense. Leasing is probably the most appropriate. Is that correct, Todd?
Yes, Mayor, we work closely with finance on these issues, and currently the rate for a lease purchase is very good, and it is better use of your cash reserve to take advantage of the low interest that is available in those purchase processes.
Mr. Chair, can I make one more comment here?
Go ahead.
One of the things I think is important for the public to understand too, that I know that Todd is looking at equipment that's less heavy than normal, you know, especially if we're going to go into the electrical units later on, is because the trucks, especially residential trucks go, our lots are 50-foot lots. And as the trucks go every week through our residential neighborhoods, the PCI on that residential streets take a punishment and a half. You know, you have those trucks weigh full, you know, I'm not sure residential, but commercial, about 50,000 pounds. So you can understand the beating that those streets take with those trucks going every 50 feet stopping and loading and unloading and so forth. So that's why it's so important that we also somehow take care of the funding for our streets, which I think is extremely important. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other comment, Madam Lopez? No? Okay. The only other comment that I have is with this, again, this is another item where we're spending a tremendous amount of money, but these are health and safety issues. The previous item with the wastewater, one spill is tremendously expensive if we get it, and it's a health issue. And the trash truck, the same thing. We need trash trucks that are working. We need safe pieces of equipment. We need experienced and skilled and trained operators on those equipment. And we need people taking care of the equipment. I think this is a good investment for our city. We need it. And the bottom line is nothing lasts forever. Some people will say we should, get more miles out of them. When you look at the data that Mr. Housley and his team has put together and how many miles some of these things have on them, it's amazing. So I'm looking for a recommendation. And again, our city needs it. We can't just stay in the Stone Ages. You got to move up.
I'll make a motion to approve and also to share with the public that this is an enterprise funds, not the general fund. Thank you, sir.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Perillo.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Do any committee members have any items for future agendas?
No.
No, I do not either. With that, I would just like to say before we adjourn, ladies and gentlemen, please practice safe health practices. Don't take a chance on getting sick or getting somebody else sick. Nobody is bulletproof. Nobody. And with the recent fatalities, people we all know, be very careful. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Thank you. So I'll second that. And this meeting is roll call.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perillo,
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Yes.
Meeting is
you.
adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.